Hey everyone, welcome to the June edition of the IT Documentation Users Group webinar. I am Shri, the Community Manager at Eureka Process, and the IT Documentation Users Group is one of the two communities that I work very closely with, the other one being the Eureka community. It comprises people from all over the world, really, different job functions, but everyone is interested in the art of IT documentation. We have a special speaker with us today to talk about Liongard. Apart from being our client, friend, and an active ITDUG member himself, which alone makes him special. So, I'm happy we have Matthew Galimi with us today because he is in the MSP business himself, and he has been in it for quite some years now. He's the founder and CEO of Divergent IT, based in Matthews, North Carolina. Matthew, thank you, and welcome to the webinar. Is there something to do with your name being Matthew and you being in Matthews? I don't know. I was wondering about it.
It's funny, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's everybody that I meet, and they're like, "Oh, where do you live?" I usually will tell them Charlotte because Matthews is a suburb. But yeah, I'm basically
Okay.
Matt from Matthews. At this point, everybody will you'll obviously joke and say, "Yeah, did they name the town after you?" and whatnot. So uh, yeah, I've heard a lot of that. Which hey, no problem. We've been here 14 years now,
Wow.
and have no plans of going back up north. So very very happy to be here.
That's cool. And you've Divergent has been around for a few years, and I know that you had a different MSP business before that, so you've been in the game for a while.
Yep. So I've been in. This is going to be my 25th year professionally being in IT. Had my first professional IT job working for the New York City Board of Education. So yep, I've worked for corporate for many different years. Started out in banking, then went the pharmaceutical route, which was a great industry for me. And probably 15 years ago, I was just building up clients on the side while still working full time, and
Hmm.
decided that, yep, let's go ahead and do this full time. And that's when we started. So yeah, I did have a much larger MSP prior to this. We were had about 130 clients globally that we were supporting. I think we were doing a little bit more than 2 million a year ARR. So had a staff of, I think it was about 15. So I got sick at the end of 2018 and decided to dissolve that business with the partners that I had and started Divergent IT with another partner who's my wife, and just much more intentional, much more
Hmm.
um, focused on being a professional and not allowing clients to tell us what they want, but telling them exactly what they need. So, I think a lot of companies or a lot of MSPs or TSPs strive to do that, and it is
Right.
hard, right? Because we don't want to turn business away, but it is what it is.
Agreed. And I'm very excited about this. I'm sure all that experience is going to funnel into you talking about Liongard. And everyone who's tuned in right now, please feel free to ask questions um, in the comment box of wherever you're watching from, and we will address them as we go along, or we'll handle them at the end when we wrap up and during our Q&A. Uh, we'll keep this to around 30 minutes. It's not hard stop. So over to you, Matthew.
Yep. So where I'd like to start is our maturity in our company was we always thought documentation. Oh, we'll just keep it in ConnectWise. That's it works for us. It does this. It does that. Right. ConnectWise we found out is not the best place for documentation. So when we started to look for documentation tools, we had previously used IT Glue at my previous MSP, but we had that negative connotation towards anything Kaseya, and we did not want to go back that route. So we came across Liongard, and I was very very surprised to find out that nobody else is doing what they're doing and how they're doing it, right? Because it when we got it implemented, it did take us, a couple of weeks to really kind of understand the full capabilities and the aspects. And we've been using it now. I think we're going on 3 years, so they've come a long way since then. But um, Liongard can be used as a documentation tool, an automatic documentation tool. It does automatically import into Hoodoo as well as IT Glue, and I'm sure some others. We do currently use both Hoodoo and IT Glue. So we do have data going into both, but the way that we utilize it most and the way we find it most effective is as a change management database. And why that's so important for us is we can see changes that are made, whether it's by a tech, whether it's by firmware updates, whether, a new piece of device or a new piece of equipment has been added to an environment, and it'll let us know, and we can kind of automatically have a ticket created in ConnectWise, categorize it and say, yep, this was known, this was unknown, who did this, who did that. So that's one of the great features of it. I mean, it's got the have you been pawned built in, and they're constantly adding, inspectors, right? The big one is the Microsoft 365 inspector, where, if one of my techs, we terminate a user for one of our clients, they go through the process that they're supposed to follow, but they forget to, remove the license from the user, right? Because these things never happen.
Yeah.
Right. We get notified and say, hey, there's a blocked user with the license still assigned, right? So we don't have to worry that, at the end of the month, oh, we forgot to do this for 3 or 4 users, and now we can't charge the customer for that. We have to take that hit, right? Liongard will pick all that up for us and let us know. Right?
I mean, it's one way to minimize the human error, I guess.
Correct. Yep. And as more as we can take out, or whatever, extra layers or false gaps that we can kind of say, yes, this is, what's going on. It helps, right? And then the other big one that we use it for, and then I'll get into the system, is, we don't currently manage DNS for our clients' websites, right? So marketing teams love to move stuff around and not move, the appropriate records or whatnot, right? So Liongard's actively looking at that. And then we get notified, right? We don't get those calls. Hey, our email's not working. We don't know what's going on.
Right.
It'll alert us, and then we can reach out and say, hey, who did this, right? Or just go to the marketing contact and say, hey, did you guys move the website? Because you didn't tell us. Oh, yeah, we did, and we didn't think that it really mattered, right? Well, here's why it mattered. And then we can go back to, the C-level team for the organization and say, yeah, well, your marketing team's making changes without involving us. And
I'm just sitting here cringing because I'm marketing. I get what you mean.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, in IT, we make some stupid mistakes too, but, sometimes it's, it does happen, but it allows us to be notified even before most of the time the client is realizing that they're having an issue, right? Because those changes are usually done after hours, right? And then in the morning, it's like, hey, I haven't got an email in 12 hours, right? And we're already notified by that point. So I'll go ahead and get into the system, right? So this is just the standard dashboard that you get, right? It tells us how many environments, how many total systems we're maintaining or monitoring within Liongard, how many alerts that we have. And one of their nice features here is how many, new systems have been discovered with the inspectors that we have set up. So I'll start out with alerts just so people can see, what some of the alerts are, right? So we do manage DKIM for all of our clients. So we do make sure that DKIM is set up. These are, luckily, they're all false positives right now, because some of them are pulling from the second key rather than the first key. So that's something that Liongard is working on to fix, right? So we don't maintain or manage the SSL certificates or the domains, but we get notified that, hey, it's going to expire. And part of our process is just to reach out to the vendor and say, hey, we got a notification, it's going to expire. We just want to make sure you're going to renew this. And, they come back, they say, yes, it's all good. Here's another one, tells us that, MFA is not turned on for privileged accounts, right? So we can go in there and we can see why or what account does not have MFA turned on. This one we believe is also a false positive. We utilize a tool that cannot have MFA on, and we just need to work that out. So just want to make sure people understand. Right, same thing, right? So here domains are expiring. We get notified about those. But let's go into what the inspectors look like, because this is where all your data is going to be set up and configured and whatnot, right? So they do have, which we've rolled out a couple so far. They do have an endpoint, so right now you can install the Liongard agent on
Okay.
Windows workstations and have it do a bunch of different items. They just came out with that this year, and we are actively testing it, as you can see, just on two machines currently. Windows Server, SQL, Active Directory, right? It'll pull all of that information, and it'll tell you, when's the last time someone changed their password in Active Directory. It'll tell you what all the SQL databases are and whatnot, right? Here's all your standard stuff. Webroot, right? Here's the Ubiquity. If we can just get into one of these, I'll show you kind of what one of the data prints looks like here, just so people can see what kind of information is being pulled.
Just want to make sure that I know you're sharing all this with us, but that the information is okay to go public. I mean, this is just
it doesn't have
okay.
None of this has. I mean, no one's going to be able to pull this data and do anything with it.
Cool.
All right, so just, I mean, they can have my host define information. I'm okay with that. They're not going to be able to get in, right? It'll show us the devices, right? So here's the two different UniFi devices we have, serial numbers, what the IP addresses are set to, MAC addresses, and whatnot, right? What's the network configuration? Right, and we'll show just what's being pulled from there, whatever users we have, which I'll skip that. What's the WLAN setup like, right? So we have two wireless set up here, and we can have all of this data be pushed to, like I said, IT Glue or Hoodoo. We currently just have the Liongard data pushed to IT Glue. Unfortunately, it does not go into the areas in IT Glue that you would want it to go into. It doesn't go into configurations like you would think the wireless information would want to go into wireless and IT Glue. It's not there yet.
Where does it end up then?
So in IT Glue, it creates its own flexible asset for that customer, and you'll see that entire data print in IT Glue. I can probably bring that up. I just want to make sure I don't have anything else on that screen before.
Sure, yeah.
So here's a list, right? So it'll do Synchro, Veeam, Vade, right? Sofo, Sonic Wall, Sentinel One, right?
Quite the spectrum there, yeah.
And they're constantly adding new inspectors, which is what we're looking at here, right? So it'll go in and say, okay, yeah, they've rolled out this new inspector, like they just rolled out, I think a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, they rolled out a QuickBooks inspector that will go in and it'll inspect your QuickBooks environments. It'll pull your users. It'll say who has what type of access and whatnot. And then, you can have that pushed to IT Glue, right? It's not going to come over, unfortunately, in applications, which is where I would want it.
Sure.
It comes over as its own flexible asset, but the data is still there.
This might sound like a bit of a noob question, but I see this conversation come in ITDUG all the time. Every time someone's discussing a different tool, there's always a bunch of people say, hey, their support is not great. I put in a request for this feature, there's no response, nothing happens. How do you find Liongard? Like, they roll out something new like this, a new inspector, and then, you would have to assume that it would have some glitches, some starting trouble. And how do they respond to your support requests, etc.?
I mean, their support has been phenomenal. Like I said, when they were a much smaller company, right, I would seem like I'd always get like the one or two people. Now, I know they've grown. So I do get different sets of techs, but they do still perform at a very high level, right? It's all on chat. You can email them, and they're willing to help and understand and guide you, even if it's creating, like some custom actionable alert. The support, from what I've seen, has always been very, very good. Right? Yeah. So yeah, they roll out these new inspectors. Sometimes they'll start out on preview, right? So I'll just skip down to that, right? So sometimes they'll start out in preview, which means that they're not, they're not fully deployed
The
yet.
beta, yeah.
You can still roll these out, right? So like we've rolled out the GoDaddy ones, but yeah, their support is very, very good. And I will tell you, like all their inspectors have a wonderful document on how to set it up, what are their steps, right? And I mean, nothing's perfect, but they do a very good job in supplying that. This way, you can just go read it and say, okay, how am I doing this? And our biggest hurdle was when we first got this set up, right? They didn't have some of these inspectors out, like Teams or OneDrive or SharePoint, right? So it was okay, yeah. Once you get the M365 set up now, right? And if you're a CSP and you're pulling in all of your clients, right, within your CSP portal, right, you only got to set it up once and it'll just keep reading the new client. So as you add a new client, it'll come under discovery. You can just tell it to go, and it's a lot simpler. But yeah, setting up the inspectors, you got to understand, I mean, every vendor is different, right? So Sophos is different than Fortinet or Palo and Meraki, right? So that learning process was interesting for us, but now we understand why, and we absolutely see the benefit. So, yeah, I mean, my only knock on Liongard right now, honestly, would be, I wish they would roll out inspectors faster, which is what I always tell them.
You're hooked now.
I have a laundry list of stuff that I would love to have that is not there yet, right? So some of the Aruba Instant On products, right? We use Inky for email security, right? I would love to have that. This way, right? I want to let the tools do what they're designed to do, to limit the amount of time that we have to go and do it, right? So, and that, like I said, that's what I always tell them. They always ask me, what else could we do? I'm like, roll out inspectors faster, right? So, I am pretty active on their ideas board. They do listen to you guys, or they do listen to their community. I can tell you that because the bunch of the stuff I've voted on has been implemented, and they do take that serious. Whereas some other vendors,
that makes a difference.
Some of their other vendors, they just tell you, hey, go vote on the idea, and you look at the idea, and it's got 2,500 votes, and it's been around for 5 years, but they're not making any progress on it, right? So why am I going to go vote? Why am I going to make it 2501? That's not going to tip the scale at all, right?
No.
So Liongard, I'm not saying they do everything, but they do listen to their community. They do the weekly or monthly calls about what's coming out. So it's important to be a part of that as well.
Do you find that it talks? I know you mentioned that when it pulls into ITGlue, it's just going to create a flexible asset. Do you find it talks better to Hoodoo compared to ITGlue?
So I would say no. Just because when we started out with Liongard before Hoodoo or ITGlue, and then when we chose a true documentation system, we went Hoodoo first, and the connection was not there when we started with Hoodoo. But they had developed it, and it's I don't remember why we stopped the connection there, but I would say, from knowing ITGlue, I would think it's more ITGlue not allowing that stuff to go into flexible assets, and going into the flexible assets that they've set up, as opposed to it's Liongard not being able to push it there, because Liongard's going to be able to push it wherever ITGlue allows it. And I'm just saying that because we've had other issues with ITGlue where, like ConnectWise, you can't do certain things because they only allow like their VSA to do it. So that would be my assumption. But the data looks very similar in either platform.
So what we're seeing now is really the inspector's dashboard, right?
Correct. Yep. This is where you would come in and you would, click on an inspector, right? You set it up. They do parent-child relationships. For the majority of their inspectors, there are some that are just not available, right? Because the systems are not set up in that manner. So yeah, sometimes you have to go in and configure each one individually, which sucks, but if you got your onboarding process down properly, it's it should be pretty easy to just go in and add. So this is one of the ones that there's no child relationship set up for. This is the information that they pull from have you been pawned. So as part of our onboarding process of a new client, we just come in here and we'll add them all manually.
Right. And I mean, a lot of it, most of it is automated once you first set it up, right? Sorry.
Yeah. Once it's set up, right, I'm not coming back into that inspector, right? So yeah, I know we probably saw that failed. There are failed inspectors at times. That stuff tends to rerun on its next cycle and get it cleared up. So
yeah. Just a reminder to everyone watching in, please feel free to ask your questions. I'm sure Matthew would love to give you an answer if you can.
Yeah, it's funny. Oh, that's a nice no-name knock on IT Glue's ID form. It's not just IT Glue. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've seen it in so many other platforms as well. Just the reason why I pointed out that Liongard does listen is because I've seen them actually make traction based on those votes. So, but yeah, I that is, if anybody's on any of those IT Glue like email chains sometimes, and they're saying we're rolling this out or that out, and they start to get pretty funny. So
yeah, let's rewind the clock a bit. I mean, you've been using Liongard for a while now. I mean, you're active on the discussion forums, and you're sort of towards the expert end of the spectrum. But when you first started, and I know they were different then, but can you think of what you found difficult? Like, and this would be thinking of someone who's watching right now, is considering Liongard and has no clue how to start.
Yeah, so for us, when it was pitched early on, it was onboarding is not very long, from what I remember. And I remember having a conversation with my account manager at the time, who's not my account manager anymore, but who is still with the company. And he asked, he's like, how long did it really take? And I said, it took us probably a good 3 weeks to fully understand the capabilities and really get everything rolled out and just say, okay, this is what we want to do for this customer, and this is how we want to do it and whatnot, right? Like I said, a lot of it is a lot more automated now, right? So the M365 one, right? We had to create the API permissions or the enterprise app for Office 365. We had to create one for Azure Active Directory. We had to create one for Teams. We had to create one for SharePoint. Right now, I think it's just all encompassing. So it did take us that amount of time, and then to understand what actionable alerts or what data you want to be alerted on, or what change you want to be alerted on some of these inspectors. It was the other thing, right? We were just thinking, oh yeah, it's going to alert us on everything, and that's not the case. I mean, Liongard does give you a good amount of actionable alerts based on each inspector, right? So like for Windows Workstation, so these endpoints, right? These are everything that we could turn on, right? So I don't turn on. I won't turn on. I don't want to get notified if it's got 15% less free space because our RMM's telling us that already, right? We don't use Defender, so I turn that one off, right?
Is the default when you start just everything is on?
Yeah, so you need to spend time and come in here and say, okay, I want to turn this on, right? So we don't use WebRoot, so I turn all the WebRoot ones off. I don't have to; it doesn't matter. It's just that's just the way we like it. But right, so here's a Windows inspector, IP address, modified, right? Domain modified, right? So these are machine warranties expired. So I can literally turn everything on if I wanted to. And I think that's what we did initially, but we learned very quickly that, some of it is just how the environment is set up. Some of it doesn't matter, right? So I would say, yeah, the onboarding does, the onboarding process, just be prepared. It's if you can provide or give the necessary time to fully understand how it goes, I think in the long run it does make things a lot easier and it gives you a better understanding of what's going on and how you can utilize the system. So
Okay, that's definitely good advice for someone looking to start out. I've come across names that sort of do, elements of the whole spectrum of stuff that Liongard does. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's anyone who really does the whole spectrum of automation like they do. But is there anyone you've heard of, you've considered?
There's not anybody that I've found or that is doing exactly what this is. Someone had mentioned something to me one time, and it was a software that I guess was like from like 20 years ago, and that I've never heard of, and I honestly don't even remember. You are starting to see some of what Liongard does. For us specifically, we are starting to see some of it in IT Glue.
Mm-hmm.
They do have the Office 365 connection now, which will go
Oh, yeah.
out and they'll go out and pull the license information into its own flexible asset. It's not alerting us. I've never investigated if it could, but
Mm-hmm.
right. And they have IT Glue has the Meraki inspector, which will pull that information in as
Right.
well. But it's not alerting us if like firmware has been
Mm-hmm.
updated or VLAN was added or whatnot. And that's where like Liongard
Mm-hmm.
is really helping out, right? So even with like Sentinel One,
Mm-hmm.
we get that from a third party vendor with a SOC 24/7 SOC. And when we first got engaged with them, for them it was some false positives that they didn't need to notify us about, but we had Liongard and inspector set up, and we're getting these notifications saying, hey, yeah, there's something going on over here. It's unresolved. So it allowed us to really be very diligent and say, hey, go back to the vendor. Hey, what's going on here? Because you guys aren't notifying us. We would like to be
Yeah.
notified. And it was just, it helped us with that vendor just really be better engaged and understand what their
Mm-hmm.
process is, and helped us, really add to our process of vendor analysis and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's awesome. I don't see any questions coming in, so probably move towards wrapping this up. This was awesome. I mean, for me as well. This is one of the conversations that keeps coming up in ITDUG. You've seen so yourself, Matthew. And I'm sure people will have questions as this sits there, and you can come into, I think, in your own words, stir the pot, so to say.
that's right. I love stirring the pot.
Did you know that Alan is publishing a book?
I did not.
Yeah, we've got the process and the other P word that is on its way. So if anyone's watching is interested, please go to eurekaprocess.com. You can scan the QR code that's on the screen right now, or eurekaprocess.com/# pre-order, and you'll get on the list and we'll notify you when it's ready. I've gone through about half of the book myself, and it's a great read, especially so if you're in the MSP field yourself. And we have a bunch of events coming up. Offline, we'll be at the Channel Pro Assembly Forum Southeast in Charlotte, North Carolina on the 8th and 9th of August. And then join us for a few drinks at an industry meetup the next day on the 10th. And we'll also be in DC, Washington, DC on the 8th of September. Again, no secret that we love to have a good time and connect with people. So please do meet us there if you're around. The next ITDUG, the last Wednesday of July, which is the 27th, will be about documenting KPIs, specifically using BrightGauge to do that. And I'm very excited about that because we're having Joe Torso. He's a new member of our team, immense amount of experience, and he'll be the one who's hosting that. And then August, we'll be having a new employee onboarding. We'll have our very own Brooke talking to you about that as well. So thank you again, Matthew. That was a very good use of everyone's time who was on here today. And please do pop into ITDUG and see if there are any questions later on in the days and weeks to come.
Awesome, man. I appreciate the invite and allowing me to kind of demo and tell you guys how how Liongard works for us, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Thank you.